For those of you tuning in, you were seeing a prop that we stopped so Mike could go grab the prop.
I mean, this is kind of, I didn't know that something that was just getting started could already break.
It's oil specific, and people have pointed that out. Hey, you know, Apple makes 20 billion or more a year in California.
All right. Welcome. You follow the hottest energy show out there, the hottest energy mid-morning show out there. With me, your host, JP Warner. We got Mike Umbro tuning in from California. Hey, by the way, so
voice changed there for a minute.
Well, yeah, I had the glasses
cool.
on. I felt like a 1970s like DJ, like, oh,
yeah,
Gas Christ is coming in live. So,
hey,
look, I want to say, everyone out there, thank you for tuning in to Energy Facts Chats. I know that a lot of people that are tuning in on YouTube want to thank y'all. That's kind of where we kind of post these live. That's kind of where we go to these live. However, Mike, there's something going on with our software because we're getting a lot of comments on YouTube that we're not filtering on this. So that's why we're not reaching out and getting back to those comments. So, Mike, we might need to do something. Either you got to follow up with those cats or we got to follow up with those cats on the comments on YouTube, or we got to figure out a way to kind of maybe check the YouTube stream and maybe dial in towards the end of the show. So
got it.
Hey, look, obviously we're gonna do a little housekeeping. Everyone, please go check out Californians for Energy and Science. That's energyandscience.com.
You had it. Boom.
Energyandscience.com. Got a lot of exciting stuff going on over there. They're kind of getting a little more organized, putting the Energy Facts Chats into the newsletter. Head over to YouTube, like, subscribe, get alerts when we go live. And what else? I think that's kind of it. So it's been kind of a busy week for both you and I, Mike, but there's been a lot of interesting energy headlines that have popped up that kind of tie into the whole energy discussions that we've been having lately. So I guess, hey, let's kick this off. If anyone's tuning in, say hello. Say bonjour if you're tuning in from France. Let's see. Yeah, we're live over here. Yeah, we're live over here. Okay, so
I got a notification. Yeah, Daryl will be chiming in shortly. He's been tagging me on a lot of LinkedIn's. I'm like, wow, Daryl, you got me all over the place. He's keeping me informed.
He'll tag you on some pretty good articles that are very relevant. There's so much stuff going on out there. So I love kind of having like people reminding me or pinging me on certain news articles that come up. But hey, look, busy week for you, man. So why don't you give us a quick recap on what you've been doing this week in your travels and your lecturing, if you will.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really Well, I did give a presentation. That counts. That counts. Yeah. So I was in Reno all week for Geothermal Rising Conference, their annual event, which next year's on the Big Island of Hawaii. So I'm pretty stoked for that. I'm like family vacay mode for that conference. But I was fortunate enough to be asked to be on the morning panel. For like Monday morning, everybody got into this big conference room. They had over 1,500 attendees at the Geothermal Rising Conference. Yeah, it was a big turnout, their biggest record turnout. There's a lot of excitement around geothermal right now.
There is. So let me ask you a question. I feel like geothermal pops up every now and then, all that stuff. It's very hot, very hot, very hot. And then I guess like I feel like whenever commodity prices go up and there's search for like whatever kind of goes up, geothermal kind of pops in. But my question is this: like, is this kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, enough time is interesting in it where it's like, okay, now it's kind of getting some legs, some legitimacy, or is this going to fall off the radar again, like it does and kind of pop up again in 6 months?
Yeah, it's a good question because it went through a boom time about 20, 30 years ago. There was some policy that was pushing it. It's very policy driven. So there's been federal support through the IRA now that has reinvigorated things. You've got Fervo and others doing hot, hard, dry rock, which is called enhanced geothermal systems. There are operators like us that are out there doing synthetic geothermal systems using solar to heat a reservoir. There are traditional geothermal operators trying to expand known geothermal basins in El Centro in California, in places like Nevada, in places like the geysers in Northern California. So there is a lot of renewed excitement and development planning going on right now in the space because we have federal support at the state level. You saw a bill, AB 1373, passed in California that calls for the state to procure clean energy resources, specifically calling out wind and geothermal. So geothermal is experiencing another, renewed period of interest, if you want to call it that. And it's exciting because, people want clean energy. States are procuring clean energy, and there's developers out there saying, let's go get it. And so it's an exciting time.
Okay. So you were up there, 1,500 people. I mean, talk to me. How was the conversations? I mean, what were the conversations?
It was interesting. The geothermal community, I feel like it has a much different culture, but there is still so much crossover between the oil and gas industry and the thermal industry. You're drilling, you have similar services, and it's a lot of crossover in the space. But what is different that I've noticed is the diversity in the geothermal community. You have an international community that comes together in this place, a lot of women, a lot of people from different countries, a lot of people that look differently, speak differently. It's not, when you walk in and you see everybody kind of in an oil and gas conference look the same, talk the same.
Well, that's interesting. That's a good point. But honestly, like I get that there is a lot of oil field conferences that do look the same, blue blazers and all that stuff. But honestly, like what you're describing, I mean, I do feel like the oil and gas industry is that. It is a lot of people with a lot of diverse backgrounds. It's a lot of people kind of from every different kind of culture around the globe or different walks of life. Nobody got in the oil field the same path, like my path is very different than everyone else's out there. So what you're describing, I understand that's very geothermal, maybe for that conference specific, but I am going to say on a pullback kind of view, that's the oil and gas space too.
Yeah.
Go on. Yeah, that's my point. Go on.
Yeah. So the panel that I was on was talking about how to bridge the cultures of oil and gas and geothermal. And I'm specific to California, so I try to stay in my lane. But one of the comments that I made was, the operators in the oil and gas space in California, I feel, the large operators are pretty dedicated to what they're doing, which is producing oil and gas assets.
Okay.
So I don't feel that there is the big push from those companies to say, oh, we're going to forget our legacy businesses and focus on geothermal resources. So I think it's going to take independent developers look at Fervo as a perfect example. Companies that might have that oil and gas experience, but that are solely focused on developing a specific resource like geothermal. So I think that was one of the main distinctions I made was, hey, there are oil and gas companies that are investing into geothermal, but it's not their core business. The core business of these oil and gas operators is to make money, and to make money producing what they're already producing, oil and gas, and at high prices.
And for the record, if you can do that responsibly, that's not a bad thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Pretty much every company business's goal is majority. So anyway,
yeah, right. And we just need to realize that was my point. The other point they asked, well, what's required, to make your project a success? And I immediately said permits, and the whole room kind of like laughs. It's funny because I think it's one of those things. It's kind of like when I go to Texas and say, hey, these policies can come here, and it's kind of a laugh.
And everyone laughs at that.
And I think it's a human reaction thing. Like you laugh when someone says the obvious thing out loud.
And also the obvious thing that, hey, man, that's your issue. That's not our issue, but it's right around the corner.
And it's an issue for geothermal, just as it is for oil and gas. You have to have permits to develop these resources. And I think if we're going to talk about the energy boomerang, I think it's an important bridge to kind of build is, hey, regardless, we need to have a framework in place to allow developers to produce a resource. And that's fundamentally what has to happen, regardless of what we're talking about, whether it's renewables, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's geothermal. There has to be a pathway in place so that we can have line of sight to develop a project. It's the only way you're going to get funding. It's the only way you're going to actually bring a resource online. It's the only way you're going to decarbonize our energy systems if you're going geothermal. So I think it's an important discussion to have. And I guess the last thing I made the point of saying was we need to be able to have these conversations, to say these things out loud. And that's one of the things that I see missing, specifically in California with the oil and gas operators, is this mentality like, if I say nothing and I just go with the flow, they're going to give me permits. I don't want to upset anybody
Yeah.
by speaking the truth.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it many times. You're not getting permits anyway. So why not say the quiet part out loud and tell everybody what needs to happen so
Yeah.
that we can develop these projects? It's not, you're not going to anger somebody. You're stating the truth. You're stating what's happening. There's only been 7 drilling permits issued in California in 2023. That's a fact. We have an average price of gasoline over $6 a gallon. That's a fact. We've lost 150,000 barrels a day of in-state production over the last 3 years. That's a fact.
And another fact is this, that the oil consumption by California has not decreased in over, what, 30 years, 40 years?
40. Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah. It
So-
dropped during COVID. And
so
guess what? It's back up.
It dropped everywhere during COVID because
Right.
people weren't driving, people weren't on the roads. So if you're saying yay, we only have 7 permits versus 1,500 we did last year. If you're saying yay, we don't have any oil production in the state of California, good for us, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah.
Right.
You aren't changing the fact that your state requires a certain amount of calories to function healthy. Okay.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter where you get those calories. I guess here's the deal. It matters. When you push it back, it doesn't matter you get the calories, but it does matter you get the calories when you're talking about the environment, when you're talking about the
Right.
economy, when you're talking about consumers, because everything that's coming out, there's the slowing of operations, the slowing of production. All that's doing is costing the consumers and costing the environment more. And
Right.
these conversations that we're saying out loud, like these are the energy facts chats that we need to be having on a grander scale. And that's the whole motivation behind these.
Absolutely. And the last and the most important point that I made, the opening session of Geothermal Rising was a great session on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we were immediately following that panel. And I said, look, tying DEI into what I'm talking about, the oil and gas industry in California is over 60% Hispanic in terms of the workforce. They make on average over $123,000 a year. They can be second chancers. They can be individuals that don't even have a high school diploma. And we as a policy in Sacramento are saying we're going to transition those workers into something else. Well, there is no something else for a worker that fits that profile.
Well, Mike, to kind of reflect, kind of put a mirroring view on that standpoint. That's the, whether it's the workers, whatever it is, that's kind of the whole basis of the conversation about this whole energy quote transition, which you and I both know it's not a transition. It's, we're not going to be worried about what we're going to replace this gap with, or this loss of jobs, whether this lack of energy or this lack of energy access to, but we just want to march in this direction. So that gap of, what now? What now isn't being answered, not just in the workers standpoint, but also where we source our energy. Everything that kind of, it's we're coming up with a solution without figuring out kind of the intricacies of details that lie in the realities of that solution.
Yes, and exactly. And I posted an article, and I think this would be a good headline to transition to, but it was Fred
First
Holmes.
off, bro, you know I'm the transition guy, and the fact
I
can't
transition the conversation.
You do you. I'm the transition
Well, I
guy.
made a post. Really, I didn't say anything that amazing, but there was an article last week, Monday, I think it was published on Yahoo, and it was about the energy transition, and the headline is California's Green Drive leaves its oil towns behind. And it specifically, the author interviewed Fred Holmes, who runs Holmes Western. And he is a great pillar of the community, giving hundreds, if not thousands of kids scholarships after high school, no matter what field they get into, putting a lot of money and education back into the city of Taft. And he said, this is the best quote in the whole article: the only thing we're transitioning to is foreign oil. If we're going to use any oil, use ours first. And And I kind of expounded upon the fact that upstream oil and gas production only accounts for 1.7% of our greenhouse gas emissions in California. Meanwhile, the port complex of LA and Long Beach is the number one source of pollution. So we are taking jobs out of our local community. As you say, we're not decreasing the demand for oil and gas at all in California. So what does that mean? We are transitioning to somebody else's product. And I think Fred said it so simply and so perfectly. And it's great to see Yahoo, or maybe it was AP and then it went to Yahoo, publish this and basically point out, hey, these towns are losing jobs. And that's not they don't need jobs in 2040 when we theoretically go to 100% clean energy. They need jobs today, especially when we have $6 to $7 gasoline. So I was excited to see that headline actually make it into a mainstream discussion.
Well, man, you're seeing these discussions kind of pop up in the mainstream. You're seeing, I mean, previously, obviously, you and I took a break from Energy Facts Chats this week because we've been so busy. But if you go back to last week and the weeks previously, you will see kind of all these headlines pop up about these grand goals about
grand planning,
these grand plans, but these wind farms, and you're seeing these wind farms not come to market. You're seeing the contracts being like, hey, look, we need 20% more of these subsidies that we're asking for.
Right.
This. So you're seeing this fail. And not only that, so you're seeing these things kind of start hitting the headlines, which is good. However, unfortunately, I feel like politics is the tail that wags the dog or whatever. It's always behind so anyway, so we're going to enter a period where for years, a majority of Americans are going to be spending a lot more for energy. As we maybe fix this, as we point fingers on, hey, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. No, it's poor energy policy based on the politicians. Anyway, so what you're seeing right now is an interesting point, okay? You're seeing kind of this breakaway point, this point in when it comes to government pushing clean tech or clean energy, whatever you want to call it. I just use that term clean because it's marketing. So you have the government pushing, the government pressure, right? And then you also have the realities of the market, okay? So you have the government pushing these offshore wind farms, and the reality of the market being like they're not profitable. Okay,
doesn't work.
You have the government pushing. For example, I just pulled up this Europe is struggling to attract solar manufacturers. So you have these governments saying, hey, look, let's get rid of these gross, disgusting fossil fuels, even though if it's produced in a responsible way, it's going to be a lot less environmental impact than some of this green tech that's coming out. Again, that's just the realities. So you have Europe who's pushing this solar. However, because of China's low cost on producing this stuff, because of the Inflation Reduction Act that subsidizes a lot of this stuff, Europe's not getting a lot of these solar manufacturers and all stuff. So now what they're thinking is, okay, so now they're trying to craft it back and say, okay, well, what if we do trade tariffs? I mean, that's Econ 201, where trade tariffs or it wasn't trade tariffs, it was like trade barriers. Trade barriers. So you're seeing this, hey, it's not working on a balance sheet. It's not working on a competitive market. It's not working to get it over here. And now you're going to do trade barriers. And then I heard that also, pipe's going to start going up more because you had a 3-generational steel manufacturer in Germany shut down. So that's the market.
I think what we're experiencing now is these projects that are sub-economic. When you talk about offshore wind, when you talk about some of these solar projects at 0% interest rates, they could make them work from 20 but you got
supply chain, you have higher interest rates, you have and the reality of the markets don't hold them up.
What many might not realize, there was a bubble in clean tech back in 2008 to 2012 that burst back when we hit that recession, and what we're experiencing now is the front end of the next clean tech bubble that's going to burst, where if you do not have a commercial project, one that makes money, it's not going to be developed. And so as the interest rates climb above 6%, as people realize China is really subsidizing this based on slave labor or forced labor, based on coal-fired generation,
Right.
based on the fact that they dominate the feedstock of rare earth minerals and the manufacturing of batteries. We don't want China to do it in this dirty way. Oh, we're going to do it in Germany, or the IRA, we're going to do it in the United States. Well, now you're realizing to do those kind of projects in countries that actually have environmental standards, it's you pay the real cost. It's not, oh, we hide all this by doing this in Africa with slave labor and then shipping the minerals to China. No, you're going to see the real cost of these technologies come to light. And that's what we're seeing right now. And that's why we're starting to see the boomerang really take shape, because
But who's going to be paying for these costs, Mike?
we will. And that's why it's taking
Hey.
shape. The ratepayers are saying, enough, we can't afford this. And the government officials are saying, oh man, we need to, in California's case, we need the state to procure these resources, because we need the state to bear the front end of the cost. And then we'll figure it out with the ratepayers later. And that's not a sustainable framework either.
So a lot of energy boomerang comment. You know what? You are seeing this, but you're also still seeing the drive, the push forward, the blind leading the blind when it comes to doubling down on this stuff. And look, again, Mike and I, we're not against all. We love all energy, but let's not villainize and let's not forget the benefits of producing energy in a responsible way.
And the benefit, you know, and the benefit
in our backyard, buying local.
Yeah, and I think
We're
one of
two
the
old
benefits,
field hippies, man.
exactly. Another article I just sent you before we got on was the back page of the exchange section in the Wall Street Journal today said high gas prices reek of low cigarette sales. And what this talks about is the fact that we have high gasoline prices, but the retail market is increasing their margin. I wanted to say it today, the margin is closer to 60 cents a gallon. And we always grew up in the energy industry knowing that the gas station makes most of its money in the retail inside, where they're selling beverages and hot dogs and pizzas and all that. Cigarettes is what they mentioned. So what's happening is the margins inside the retail store, buying the junk food and the things at the gas station, are getting smaller,
right,
as the price to produce all that, as inflation bleeds into the food manufacturing, bleeds into people not buying cigarettes. So now they have to make up that lost revenue inside on what's happening at the pump. So it's kind of this bad feedback loop where they're taking more taxes out of the pump for renewable efforts. And then we're seeing more inflation inside, and it adds to the margin that the retailers need to charge on the gallon of gasoline. And so it's all causing the prices to maintain an elevated rate. And so it'll be interesting to see, as oil seems to be dipping back down now, how quickly the price at the pump reacts.
Well, you're seeing, I mean, the funny part is you're seeing headlines everywhere these mornings like, oh, price of gas could be down at below $3.
Yeah.
The demand's here. The deconstructed demand. I mean, you're seeing gas prices surging below $3 by Thanksgiving. Like you're seeing, so pretty much all across the headlines right now, you're seeing many conflicting stories about gas, many conflicting stories about oil. Oil again.
Yeah.
I think it's a sign of the times. That means nobody really knows what they're talking about, including us right now. Yeah. So, but
we're not making forecasts though. I think
no. But I mean, so all across the headlines, you have gas. Some articles saying gas prices will be here, some gas prices will be here. You have oil prices be here to here. Pretty much, we don't know. Okay, right. So I think the clickbait-ish of it could get here, it might get here, it could get here. Just realize, just buckle up, and I feel like that's a reset to do the blame game again. It's like, well, we could have got here, except that the big oil decided to, they weren't making enough money with $80 oil, so that there's gonna be finger pointing going on.
Yeah. Well, here's, I think, basically what's going to happen. You're going to have more volatility with these kinds of policies, with added taxes, with inflation. What you're going to see is more volatile price swings. I saw someone say, oh, we're going to have $150 oil. Well, maybe for a day, maybe for 2 days, whatever. And then the market reacts. And so you're going to have more volatility in the market, but nobody knows where these prices are going.
And again, that kind of kicks you in the butt whenever you're talking about getting investing capital into this industry, which is very much needed. But yeah, it's going to be difficult when it's a volatile market.
Yep.
Actually, maybe not. Maybe if you're not a smart investor, you realize, hey, ride the wave.
Yeah, or if you're like every other American and you're too broke to have any disposable income to trade, it really doesn't affect you. You care about what the price is at the pump and when you check out at the grocery store. That's how you're trading.
Yep. So what else is going on in the energy realm right now?
Gosh, I saw something about a big acquisition, right? Potentially. I think this has been announced before.
Well, dude, there's acquisitions.
Exxon buying Pioneer for potentially $60 billion. I guess that's the other one we should mention.
You had Venture sell 2 days ago to Civitas, whatever, up in Denver, and then the acquisition,
like dry cleaning business.
And then I saw someone on Twitter say, "Look, with all this acquisition and stuff, it's crazy and all, but it's also going to reduce production."
Yeah, well, yes, and I think that is what we're seeing in California. The large operators, they've got to love this dynamic. The consolidators have to love this dynamic where we are going to milk our production and we're going to ride high prices. And it does not breed competition. That's one thing for sure. So I think broadly, as we continue through the next 5, 10, 15 years, as we see energy markets, it's going to be consolidating into fewer and fewer companies, and those companies are going to have more and more control. And I don't believe that's going to be favorable for innovation. I believe for innovation, you need to have more competition in the market. You need to foster the independence. So it's something to watch.
Do you see that as innovation on the service side potentially?
I think we talked a lot about this in geothermal rising. You see a lot of services that are and a lot of technology being developed at the drill bit with certain tools, with certain approaches to developing resources. Yeah, but ultimately you need stable development, and developers are the ones paying for the services. So I don't know that's going to, I think you can bring down drilling costs. I think you can make drilling happen faster, but
I'm not talking about drilling record wells. I'm talking about technology coming out there.
Yeah. I think the technology helps, but technology is only developed or put into the market at the speed that the developers are able to raise money and develop new projects. And I fear that these projects are not being developed with speed and purpose in mind. They're being developed with cash flow in mind, as they should be. But it's going to take much longer for new technologies to roll out into the market, I guess, is my thought.
Hey, Mike, I'm gonna hit pause on you, buddy. I want to do a moment of reflection right now. So since we started these Energy Facts chats, which have been pretty enlightening to me and all that stuff, what have you kind of seen take place from our discussions and kind of come to light? So, for example, this all got kicked off based on that electricity map that you showed me. We started talking about that. Then it's funny now. I'm hearing conversations that we had months ago about the electrification of the ports. What does that mean for the everyday, the small mom and pop entrepreneur? What does it mean for bridges with the added weight, or garages? Great English, JP. But so what I am seeing from these conversations that we're having, you're kind of seeing what we talked about months ago with the boomerang, with the returns from the wind farms, with the realities. Can these battery technologies sustain us for X number of hours that they're saying? What are these policies actually have the results, whether it's to the environment, whether it's to the economy, whether it's to the people's wallets? I'm enjoying kind of seeing the continuous headlines kind of evolve as the days go on. So I'm enjoying the Energy Facts chats on a personal note. What about you? I mean, you've been dialed in, your head's underwater and all that stuff. So from these conversations, what's been a kind of a cool experience for you that you're seeing? Besides Bob down the street loving it.
Well, Bob down the street, and then at drop off, there's some folks that have been listening to us. I think it's important to be talking about these issues, and hopefully we can bring more people in to be talking about these things. We're getting a lot of momentum through our Californians for Energy and Science folks that like these fact chats, folks that are seeing, wow, we need to start organizing and voicing what's happening in these communities. You're seeing the headlines come out of Kern County specifically, where the jobs are not there, the rural towns are being left behind. And so now is the time to be highlighting these discussions, these reversals in sentiment, or the free market winning over a forced market. And I think that's going to be a continued theme.
Yeah, you think the government's out there looking out after you? No, they're looking out after their own pockets. So they're not going to be designing energy policy that benefits the American people. They're going to be doing that to affect their 1% of their 1% of their thing. So anyway, yes, you need to have some energy facts chats for the American population or the global population.
Yes, and I need to help with school drop-off.
Right now?
Unless you had another topic you wanted to roll to.
All I was going to say is, but I will show you this. My daughter built this for me.
Oh, that is rad.
It was a puzzle that my parents, my dad's from Beaumont, Texas.
Yes.
Spindletop's from. He's an accountant. He's not an oil field at all. First generation.
Nice oil derrick there.
But yeah, so
love it.
My daughter called me up. It was like a 3D puzzle. So anyway, that's all
cool.
I got, buddy. Hey, have fun. The school drop off. Tell the family we said hello, that we love them.
Absolutely.
And then I guess, hey, stay then. Keep chatting. Hey, let's get this on
Monday. Yeah.
Monday. We'll see everyone out there Monday. Make sure you like, subscribe, talk about it. Get those energy fat chats.
For those of you tuning in, you were seeing a prop that we stopped so Mike could go grab the prop.
This is I didn't know that something that was just getting started could already break.
It's oil specific, and people have pointed that out. Hey, Apple makes 20 billion or more a year in California.